before we go into your book, the is there a kind of understanding, or is Milton trying to impart an understanding that perhaps we change the world incrementally, that changes are small rather than these vast projects of social engineering that are embodied in incidents like revolution?
That's a really good question. I was just thinking earlier today how I believe this is a revolutionary poem, but it's somewhat absent of examples of fiery rhetoric, or at least fiery rhetoric that is meant to get the reader pumped up. Milton wrote it at the end of his life, where I think he was probably quite conscious of violence and of the downsides of violent radical change. He didn't in any way, I think, recant his views on democracy being the best, most secure system of government, but he was perhaps more cautious about the kind of violence that he was willing to subscribe to. So I think he was insistent that liberty was something to be fought for, as you say, through small acts, through humble acts. This is an epic poem, but unlike the epic poems of classical antiquity, Homer's Iliad, Virgil's Aeneid, this is not an epic poem that spends much time celebrating the heroic deeds of men. It's not a macho poem. It's a poem for which the most heroic acts are true to the New Testament. They're humble and often quiet acts of love, of forgiveness, and so on. So I think you're absolutely right there.
He writes the better fortitude of patience and heroic martyrdom unsung, which sounds like him at that
Absolutely.
moment.
But at the same time, there is a heroic triumph, but it's that of God and of God's Son in heaven. So the main warfare that happens in Paradise Lost is the defeat of Satan by God's Son in heaven. At that point, Milton allows himself to, describe the full epic machinery destroying Satan's rebellion. But I think he was cautious about celebrating the grandiosity of men's projects to destroy each other.
He also writes, by small accomplishing great things, by things deemed weak, subverting worldly strong, and worldly wise by simply meek.
Powerful stuff. I went back to Princeton a couple of weeks ago to give a guest lecture in a Paradise Lost class, and they were reading the passage in book 6, in chapter 6, about the war in heaven, and there was this line that felt to me so movingly relevant to today, or at least an idea, where God says, "War wearied hath performed what war can do." The idea being that the purpose of war is simply to exhaust everyone and to destroy everything until it's intolerable. And that seemed to me a statement of real, not cynicism so much as the absence of illusions about the possibility of just wars on earth.
Well, the English Revolution was very bloody and very violent, and with the restoration of the monarchy, executions were very common.
Absolutely. So the violence that Milton was perhaps recoiling from was the as you're suggesting, the very violent punishments of his former associates that were happening in London streets very close to where he was living.
Before we go into your book, let's just talk about the end of the book, where Satan, essentially tries to assume the posture of a deity. And what's the line? Here's a hiss. Everybody becomes a snake, including Satan.
Right. Right. Absolutely. So in a recent article for The Nation, I compared this to one of Elon Musk's sort of colonizing Mars projects, because Satan has proposed to go up to this new world to colonize it on behalf of his followers. And he goes up there and he does what he said he would do. He convinces Adam and Eve to betray their creator. He comes back down, and his followers, the devils, have prepared a kind of triumphal ceremony for him. He gives this great speech saying, "This is what I've done for you. Get ready to take your place in this New World colony." And he's met with a universal hiss. And that is at once a joke about how no orator ever wants to be hissed at by the crowd, but also that their punishment, that God has turned them all into snakes.